The June 18th, 2013 Parks and Recreation Board meeting is now in session. First item on the agenda is a roll call. Mary, please.
Chairman Volkmann?
Here.
Member Brush?
Here.
Member Hill?
Here.
Member Jasica? Member Kohlmeyer? Member Turelli? Here. Member Walker?
Here.
And Student Dixon. We have, Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thanks, Mary. Next item is approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was on April 16th. Do I have a motion? Or any concerns about the minutes?
I'll motion to approve minutes.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you. The next item is to welcome two of our new board members. Unfortunately, neither of them are here tonight, but I do want to mention that they will be joining us at some point. Charlie Kohlmeyer will be on the board for the next 2 years, and our new student member this year is Will Dixon. And when they do join us in an upcoming meeting, I'll ask them to share a bit about themselves. Next item is from our city forester, Peter Gordon, to talk to us about emerald ash borer. Hi, Peter.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Volkmann, members of the Parks Committee. I'm here tonight to speak to you about emerald ash borer and just give you kind of an update where we've been. I know we've met before on this, and we've met with City Council, and so just wanted to kind of highlight a couple of things, but more importantly, let you know, as well as the residents of Lake Forest, that the city has begun tagging trees. Unfortunately for emerald ash borer, we've been at it for about 2 weeks now, and so we want to kind of walk you through the process so that you have a clear understanding of what it is that we do. And so we provided a flow chart here that we will.
Peter, hold it 1 second. They said your mic's not on.
Better?
There we go.
Apologize for that. So we have provided you a flow chart that you can see on the screen. It has a number of different components. It has a city component, it has a private component for hazardous trees, and has a private component for non-hazardous trees. So basically what our staff does is we try to identify ash trees that are declining more than 40%. And when it comes to the city and city ash trees, either on city streets or on properties owned by the city of Lake Forest, and those could be parks, buildings like City Hall, or other unimproved easements, the city tags those trees as well. And so the process is to identify those trees, to go ahead and tag those trees, and then to give ourselves, as we do our residents, 30 days to remove those trees. To date, in the 2 weeks that we've been tagging, we've tagged over 150 city trees. And we haven't made it out of the east side of town. So certainly emerald ash borer is experiencing that exponential growth we talked about. Secondly, we go over to residential trees. We have two categories. One is trees that pose a public health threat. Those could be trees in the front yard. Those could be trees in the side yard. Either one that may fall into the sidewalk or into the roadway, or maybe even fall into primary wires. Residents who have a emerald ash borer tree that's infested and deemed a public health threat will receive a letter from the city giving them 30 days to remove those trees. Keeping in mind that ash trees become very brittle as they start to die, and so our concern is public safety, again, whether it be around utility lines or along public roadways, and so we really try to work with the residents to get those trees down in a timely manner. If they don't follow through with the 30 days, we do a follow-up visit and offer them a 10-day extension to remove those trees. And hopefully by then, they've realized the threat here, and they'll go ahead and abate the nuisance. If we still don't get any compliance, we turn it over to the city's attorneys to follow up with. Because there truly is a need to get these trees down, and certainly they can become hazardous to the public. If residents have trees in their backyard, these trees will not necessarily be required to be removed if they don't pose a public health threat, but residents will still receive a letter encouraging them to take them down because they still are a liability for their own families and a liability for their neighbors. And so residents will receive that letter as well. And so what we want people to know is that we have these two tags here up on the screen. One is red for Dutch elm disease. That program is still going on. We tag about 1,000 trees a year for Dutch elm disease. The green tag is for emerald ash borer, and certainly I think the community will become more, they'll understand more what emerald ash borer is as they start to see these green tags all over the community. We go ahead and tag private residents, as we mentioned, and we leave them a door hanger on their front door, letting them know if they're not home that we were there and that they do have trees that pose a hazard to the city and what they can expect. So we try to communicate either in person or by using our door tags here. We leave them a number to answer any questions that they may have, as well as direct them to the city's webpage for information on EAB. So that has commenced or is going on and will continue to go on for the rest of the year. And I'm not sure if you guys have any questions on the tagging process or questions on the letters, but certainly I'd be happy to answer those.
Peter, I know we talked about this yesterday, and you clarified for me that if you get a letter B, which is the notification that you have to take a tree down, you don't need to also file for a permit, that the letter itself serves as the permit? Correct?
Yep.
Can we make that clearer in the letter? Because I read it again, and yeah, and so my suggestion is where it says, this letter is your authorization and direction to remove the tagged trees, just add to that sentence, and no further permits are required for these tagged trees, or
Sure.
something like that, just
We
to
can
be really clear, because I'm concerned that we're gonna, get a lot of confusion or have a lot of confusion on that.
Sure. No, I think that's a great idea. We can absolutely add that to the verbiage.
Great, thank you.
I'm reading the letter and it actually says that, and maybe I didn't read it right, but, that removal requires a permit, but yet you can get the permit online by calling municipal services. Are you saying that's?
Well, there's a couple different letters there. So you're probably reading the letter where it's non-hazardous backyard or, yep. And so those are the ones where we've identified trees. We haven't gone to the point of tagging them, that we're encouraging residents to get those out. And the reason that we still require a permit is because we want to track this, for one reason. But two, we want to make sure that people are taking out ash trees and not getting them confused for other tree species.
Peter, you mentioned in your preamble about the public, private trees on private land that represent a public hazard are going to need to be taken down. And that's a big deal, and we've talked about that. The trees that are on private land that you mentioned aren't a public hazard, but, and these are your words, you said could be a hazard to the family itself or to neighbors. Once you bring neighbors in, is that not then a public health threat?
It's still considered a private health threat. Public would be more on city right-of-ways, areas where the public has the ability to ingress or egress or the ability to freely move without authorization, like going onto someone's property. What the letter does, in theory, is it puts the burden back on the homeowner as well as the liability to go ahead and address that. So in the event that that tree does fail, it wouldn't be considered an act of God. It would be considered more negligence. You have to keep in mind that there could be potentially 40,000 backyard trees that pose a threat to some degree, and unfortunately right now we just don't have the staff to go ahead and identify every single tree and tag them, and then the logistical process of trying to get them down in 30 days. And so this is the city's attempt to try to get compliance with the residents to go ahead and take them down, because you're absolutely right. There is a risk associated with leaving standing infested ash trees, but that risk is private and not public.
So I remember having this conversation with you about 3 months ago. And I don't think it's a bad thing for the broader public to hear that that's an issue that they're going to have to deal with, and that liability would be theirs, not the city's.
Right.
There's obviously plenty of liability to go around in this with this emerald ash borer situation.
And we do receive calls weekly about residents calling about other dead trees they've noticed, concerns they have. Outside of things like Dutch elm disease, the city doesn't necessarily get involved in what we term neighbor disputes. Some of them are non-hazardous, and we get calls because they look bad. Some of them potentially could be hazardous, but they're not anywhere near a public infrastructure or streetscape. And so the hazard is just minimal to the person usually calling.
Dutch elm is a totally different, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a completely different situation in the sense that those trees really are structurally pretty sound, generally speaking, for a long time, whereas these emerald ash borer infested trees are going to be brittle. They're going to come down in windstorms. You know, you're not going to need a lot of disturbance to bring some pretty heavy branches down.
Sure, and you're absolutely right, and maybe that's something that I can differentiate between, because both emerald ash borer and DED Dutch elm trees are covered in city's ordinance for nuisances, either through infectious diseases or infestations. With Dutch elm disease, the city is still concerned about tagging trees throughout the yard, front yard, backyard, side yards, and to get those out in 30 days because they actually do have scientific proof that if those trees are left standing, they can infect other healthy trees. Without having to treat healthy trees like you do emerald ash borer, having to maintain them, and so there's a little bit different philosophy on those. Now, over time, elms can become brittle, but not to the extent and at the speed and rate that EAB trees become brittle.
And I think one of the things, oh, that's really loud. One of the things that came up at the resident workshop was that we want to encourage residents to get on top of their tree situation sooner than later because the trees become much more dangerous for the tree companies to actually come in and remove them because they can't climb in them, they can't work on them like that. So the sooner they get into those trees, if they show their decline, the easier it'll be to get it off their property and do it in a safe fashion. So the cost will also be less for them.
Peter, I had a question for you. Someone had asked after our meeting yesterday, is this contagious? Meaning, do other species, are they susceptible to emerald ash borer?
Only the fraxinus species, which is ash, so you don't need to worry about things like oaks or maples or anything else like that. They have their own problems, but certainly not to the magnitude the ash trees do. So it's specifically ash. It's specifically the bug and the larva. It's a larva that kills a tree by tunneling under the bark. So there's no need to worry about any other trees, shrubs, or plants in your yard.
And then the second question, which again you answered yesterday, but I don't remember the answer. For the 4,800 inches that we're proposing to cover with our funding, how many trees is that? Was it 600 or so?
It is, and I'll get into that just shortly here with the approval of the removal and stump contract, but you're absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, was there thought or consideration given to the residents that you're tagging on private trees, cost reduction or cost sharing with who the city uses to remove the trees as opposed to having them go out and
Sure.
find a certified arborist?
Well, we always recommend contacting a certified arborist and getting 3 quotes. We have looked into consortium pricing to figure out what things would benefit the city and its residents. Unfortunately, with removals, there's so many unknowns. When we talk about bidding for street trees, they're along the roadway. Typically, if anything, there may be a mailbox or a street light. There's not a lot of hazards. When you talk about residential removals and you talk about pools, patios, decks, front doors, garages, other things like that, it really becomes more difficult, and so each tree is bid based on the amount of time that a tree care provider thinks it'll take. And so we have looked at other things. We offered some chemical opportunities this past spring. We're looking at tree planting opportunities or purchasing opportunities in the next year, things that are more manageable and people can give realistic bids. But we found when tree removal comes into play that most companies don't want to bid on that because there's just way too many variables and they don't want to leave themselves uncovered.
I'm concerned a bit about the administrative burden of this. I'm just thinking about the 150 trees you've tagged already in the first 2 weeks. There'll be thousands by the end of the summer, and everybody's calling Peter Gordon. I mean, you're a forester, a professional forester. You're a very good one, and we're very fortunate to have you. You're not a clerk. You're not a phone answerer. So are we going to bring on some administrative support just to manage the sheer volume of the calls and the tracking the 30 days and the follow-ups and all that kind of stuff?
Well, some phone calls are easy to answer. There's a lot of site visits that are starting, and that becomes more difficult. Sometimes a phone call, we can answer a problem in 1 or 2 minutes. It's the site visits and the unknowns and the unbiased opinion that people want. You're absolutely right. I mean, phone calls have also increased. questions after our EAB workshop, and now that it's being aired on our cable access channel, they're coming in as well. And so with the help of my staff as best we can, certainly with Trish, our administrator, we're doing our best to field these calls and trying to balance our time, because we do have other things that we're working on outside of Emerald Ash Borer, and that has always been a concern of ours, is, you know, to have that contact with the residents, but also to deal with trees that are affected by other pests, have other hazards, need maintenance in other ways. And so, you know, we have a crew of 7 people to take care of over 24,000 parkway trees. And then we talk about the cemetery and the golf course we manage as well when it comes to trees. And so it is daunting. So far we're doing what we can. I think that, you know, certainly Mary or Chuck will hear from us as we start to get buried more and more and look for maybe temporary help, whether it be administratively or even in the field.
I would say that we have a nice teamwork environment with the 2 administrative assistants that support Public Works as well. So if there's a big snowstorm, as an example, normally that would be their responsibility to field resident calls and stuff. But then when those kind of situations heat up, Trish jumps in and helps them. And so we have talked a little bit about utilizing that whole pool to assist us with it and getting letters out. But if it's going to be a long term and it becomes too challenging for that team, then we will have to look at supplementing with some assistance. But it's a little bit of an unknown still for us too.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a lot of work, a lot of administrative work.
Absolutely.
Glad to hear Trish is gonna take care of it though.
The only question I have is I've noticed, and maybe they've been there for years, maybe they were done as part of the tree inventory last year, maybe they're new, but sort of the small discs on all the trees in the parkway, at least in my community. Is that part of the tree inventory that was done last year?
Well, the tree inventory is a non-invasive inventory, so there was no tagging actually done. A couple things come to mind. One is that when we have trimmed in a neighborhood, we've tagged trees for trimming. So if you live in a neighborhood where maybe you had some recent tree pruning, that has taken place. Now, the city is treating for Emerald Ash Borer approximately 620 trees. Those tags actually are found on the back side of the tree, so the homeowner side. They're a light blue in color, and the numbers are meaningful for the city staff. They're not so meaningful for the resident or the person who looks at them, but those are kind of inconspicuously located. So to Curt's point, we don't generate a lot of phone calls for ourselves. So silver tags probably trimming. Blue tags would be those trees are being treated for Emerald Ash Borer.
Just quickly, a couple things. One, so just to make sure I understand what Curt asked, if they get a letter, then the permit is essentially in hand with the letter. So the question is, how are we going to sort of police the fact that they still need to use an approved tree removal company to have the work done? And is there risk if we're not using the approved list?
Sure. That's actually a really good point. At that point, the city's not tracking it through their licensed landscapers. It's going to be more or less, people driving by and seeing companies that are unfamiliar. We get calls all the time, and so we're hoping that our residents are familiar with that licensed landscape list. You're absolutely right. We can't necessarily track that if we're giving them this blanket permit, in theory, to take those trees down. And we do have actually a meeting scheduled for this Thursday with our community development department to talk about tracking and to talk about process, because again, we're getting calls about how long does the process take? Is there a way to speed line and expedite these? And I think that's a really valid point. How do we track those maybe non-licensed tree care providers that are coming into the community? Because rest assured, with the number of trees along the North Shore that are dying because of Emerald Ash Borer, we will start to see a lot of these companies come in. So I promise to follow up with that with you early next week.
All right, good. And I know yesterday when we met, we had suggested that we also just send out at least a portion of the brochure that lists that group. Second piece is, are we requiring then the residents on private property that remove trees to replant?
We're not, although the city ordinance allows us to do that. We feel to some degree that adds insult to injury. And so we realize the financial burden that will be placed on a lot of residents here. thousands upon thousands of dollars for some of them, that we feel that that loss alone, certainly to turn around and ask them to replant may be a little bit too much. Although we know this community well enough, I think, that we know they are have a vested interest in their trees and their landscapes into their gardens, and so we feel that they'll do it naturally, and that's why we also want to have somewhat of an incentive program to offer trees at a discounted rate, really to kind of expedite and move that forward as well.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
So I briefly touched on treatment. Is there any questions on treatment? I didn't get into the whole minutia of that, but we are treating over 617 trees with triage, which is probably the most effective product on the market right now based on the infestation levels here in town. And so if there's no questions on that, I'd like to move to talking to you about the tree and stump removal bid that the city just has gone through. City of Lake Forest has gone out to bid to have trees removed from city streets, city facilities, and unimproved easements. And in doing so, we got 4 prices back. The prices were fantastic, to be honest with you. They were about half of what we expected. When we go out to bid, we base things on inches, and so we have categories of trees, smaller trees, medium-sized trees, and larger trees, and we project how many trees in each category we feel we're going to take down. Our projections were about 300 trees based on the dollar amounts we thought we were going to spend for the contracts. As the contracts and the bid documents started coming in and we started to do the bid results, we realized that it was about half of what we were anticipating. The reason we anticipated a much higher dollar amount was because when we did our tree inventory, as we talked about earlier, Davey, a consultant we were using, was using more of a national pricing structure, and whether it was based on the economy, based on the contractors, we found that the localized price was much cheaper than the nationalized price, which has allowed us to, in theory, double our bid. So as Lauren said, go from 2,400 inches to 4,800 inches, still staying under the dollar amount approved by City Council, which is $100,000. And so we are seeking approval from the Park Board to go ahead and move in this direction to actually double the original contract. The caveat to this is that we have learned through speaking with other municipalities and other cities, not only locally but from around the country, that no one tree company can handle the volume of trees that municipalities and residents are throwing at them. And so the caveat to the approval that we're asking for is we're actually would like you to also approve the second and third bidder in this, which would be Nels Johnson Tree Experts and Canukin Tree Experts, so that we have backup companies in the event that there's a storm, in the event that their residential work picks up, in the event that they can't even keep up with the city trees. Our intention is to use our low bidder first, then go to our second bidder, and lastly our third. There was about a $400 difference between our second bidder and our third bidder, so somewhat insignificant, about a $10,000 dollar amount overall with our first low bidder to our second low bidder. So I think it's a great insurance program to have, to already have your approval and for hopefully council's approval on the 1st of July, so that in the event this exponential growth really skyrockets, that we can bring in multiple companies without coming to you every time to seek your approval. I certainly would be happy to answer any questions on that.
I would mention to the board, we updated the write-up that we had put in the board packet from last week based upon the joint meeting that we held yesterday with the PPL, Property and Public Lands Committee, and a subcommittee of the Park Board. So if you, that document's in front of you, and that requested action step has been updated in there for you, from which, depending on if you have questions or not, if you approve that, to make that your motion. So
the bids were originally, it was a total of 2,400 inches that we gave them and said this is the amount, it was a bid for an amount.
Correct.
All right.
And we anticipated those prices coming in at $80,000 to $90,000.
And do we have any basis to believe that they'll hold these prices based on the fact that we're now, instead of giving one company 100% of the 2,400, now we're talking about having 3 companies that we will sort of, as I understand it, pick and choose based
Well, we've notified them all, just to see what their commitment would be to the city. As you can imagine, I think they're all happy that they're going to kind of get a little piece of the pie. Our contract and the way that we set up the bids allows the city to either increase or decrease at the city's discretion what it feels appropriate. And so typically, to my knowledge, we really haven't doubled many bids. Although here's an opportunity to do so, and as we've talked to the contractors, they were pleasantly surprised and certainly were looking forward to doing the work. So we'll see if they can keep up with the work. I think that's a different story, but they are willing to take on that challenge. And, you know, keep in mind, our first intention is to go to our low bidder.
I guess I'm just trying to understand how they're gonna charge out. We're gonna charge out per inch then?
Mhm.
They're gonna take this total and say, well, that equates to X dollars per inch, and that's what we're.
Correct. So the way that the billing takes place is per inch, and although we have different categories, a 10-inch tree still has a 10 or an inch price for that category. It goes up a little higher as the tree goes bigger. So with our computerized tree inventory, we have an accurate inventory that tells us exactly what the inches are they're removing, so we can actually manage our money before the work actually takes place. Now, keep in mind, even for us, it's hard to know what that end number is going to be because it's going to be based on that 40% threshold we talked to you about earlier and what trees are declining quickly, more so than others.
I think the other thing to note is that at this point, we're looking at $100,000 maximum. We have budgeted $150,000 in the capital, with the idea that if we need to, if we exceed where we think things will turn out as far as the canopy, et cetera, then we would come back and bring this through Park Board and City Council to say, we now feel we need to spend the full 150, but we wanted to kind of get this going with doubling the inches and seeing if we can manage that part of it. And if we have the need because of safety issues, we still have $50,000 more that we could look at doing down the road. So.
Peter, when we met a couple of months ago, you showed a 10-year sort of strategy for this, and the numbers were certainly much larger than the 100,000 that we're talking about here. I recollect it was somewhere in the neighborhood of more than 7 million or something like that. So how does this piece fit into that master strategic vision that you had set forth and showed to the city council?
Well, there was three components. There was a treatment component, and a removal component, and a replanting component. And I think in theory, they all totaled somewhere around $3.5 million. And so this was a pleasant surprise to see this. And so there's been kind of a paradigm shift into how we're doing certain things. So originally, as part of that plan, we thought we could treat maybe 1,200 trees. We're treating 600. So that actually drops the treatment cost down. We received a bid as part of a joint bid with the town of Lincolnshire that actually was lower than the Davie kind of national prices. And so I think that it's still hard to get the gauge on the removal costs, but the treatment costs have certainly lowered considerably. The replanting costs right now are lower. So I would say on that $3 million price tag you originally saw, I'd feel confident saying probably about 2 to 2.2, knowing that there's some other variables out there. Since we also last met, we talked about city-owned facilities and properties. We've identified approximately 1,900 ash trees on those properties that do pose a threat to public safety and property, that are in very obscure areas, harder to reach, so costs may be a little bit higher, and we didn't have that number at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good plan. And are we approving, this says recommended city council action on the new write-up, is that?
Yeah, it's to be Park Board, and then we will take it on to City Council July 1st.
Okay,
So.
so do I have a motion?
Yeah, so move to move forward to recommend to the city council for the three listed.
Thanks, Dave. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You got it, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank
Peter,
you.
I just want to go on record as saying I think you and your team are doing a terrific job on this.
Thank you.
You know, it's a long battle, and you guys have come an awful long way in a relatively short period of time. So I want to personally commend you for that.
We appreciate that, and I'll make sure we pass it on to our staff.
Yeah, from the whole board, please. thank you very much for what you're doing.
Can
No
we-
chipper, Peter? We're
Can
talking
I
about-
mention one other thing? Just one other thing as part of that? But go ahead.
I was just gonna say, are we gonna talk about the chipper tonight? Or no?
I don't believe we're going to talk about that tonight, only because we have to work at getting some other bids unless you want to, Mary.
I mean, just the concept, I guess we can share is that we talked at the PPL meeting with a joint meeting was acquiring a chipper that would be a size that would enhance what our ability is to get into certain areas because it's not quite as large and quite as heavy. We did get direction from the PPL and the park board members that they would like us to go ahead and try to get some prices for that and bring that bid back through. And that would allow us to put 2 teams out on the streets basically. So when we do our removals, we're chipping right away and doing a follow-up with that.
And I'm certainly happy to answer any of those questions. I know we met on it yesterday, and if you have any specific questions, just let me know.
I think it's a great idea. I just didn't know if we were to approve anything tonight. It sounds like we got to
Yeah.
get some bids in first.
Yeah, what we'll
Okay.
do is we'll come back to you with actually the bids and the prices, seek your approval now that we've got direction at least to move forward and to start securing bids. And then after, hopefully we receive your approval, we'll go to City Council.
Great.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that I think it's a great idea that Peter and his team came up with, that as we start to go out and do some of the work in the neighborhoods, we've decided to create these the signboards that you see similar, like hydrant flushing this week in your neighborhood, and we're going to have those kinds of signboards that will the guys will set out so that people will know why we're taking out trees. It'll say, for the purpose of EAB. So we can then kind of alert people when they're in their neighborhoods. And I think that's another way from a community education perspective of letting them know that where we are and where we're out and about. So I think that's a good step.
Right, and I just want to add a couple things. One is that it was an idea that originated with our Public Works group, so getting back to that whole process of being in situations, whether it be snowstorms or floods or EAB, how the city staff works together to develop that, and that was something that came from Dan Martin, superintendent, for the simple fact of hydrant flushing. But one of the other things that I might want to mention to you as well is that we have reserved signboard space on the community signboards for the next 3 weeks, and we'll actually be putting up a tag very similar to the EAB tag that says, "What does green mean?" with the city's website, in hopes to kind of make people wonder, what does green mean, and bring them to the website, where then we'll talk about emerald ash borer, let them know what the green tags are. So you'll see these bright green signs that we just finished creating today on the community signboards for approximately 3 weeks in July, right after the 4th of July, that week after that, and hopefully that will grab some attention, get people to the web page where they can learn more about emerald ash borer. So that should be here in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the other thing is I will be sending you tomorrow the link to, or the information about the YouTube. It was the resident open house that we held on June 1st. And I would encourage you to, review that and take a look at that again, because it was some great questions from residents that, and great information from Al, who was our keynote speaker, about just understanding EAB and as well as how it's going through our community and our area and stuff. It was really an interesting and I thought helpful video. So that's already, it is airing on the Channel 17 channel, as well as we have it as a YouTube video. So either one you can
And I think
watch
Steve
it.
suggested yesterday that we repeat that forum at some point in the fall, correct?
He did, and we agreed with him. We think that's a great idea. We think that if we can tie it into the questions about what can we do for residents and kind of this green initiative, the regreening of Lake Forest, that might be kind of a joint effort so that we can not only get them there to educate them on EAB, but then also have trees available at a real reasonable price.
So fallish time frame you're thinking?
We were thinking October when we talked earlier, so that's kind of a time that we're keying in on.
Good.
So we don't want to push it too late just because tree planting and people
Right.
not wanting to get them in the ground.
Thanks again for everything you're doing, Peter. Sorry, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna say, Peter, I was taken back by the statistic that you gave us yesterday morning in terms of the Lake Forest tree canopy being at, 50% versus a national average of 30, and the potential 19% reduction. So I would just encourage you guys as you go with this green movement to get that out in front of people. I mean, it's a a huge treasure here for the city that we can get people to sort of reforest towards that.
Sure, and you'll see that the City of Lake Forest and Lake Forest Open Lands is really teaming up here. We've had a number of meetings. I think they are on board, as is the city, to regreening with native trees. And so you'll see a lot of us here in the next year really pushing that. So I appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Peter. Next item is proposed change to Park Board meeting schedule and format. Mary?
Yeah. I'll just sit here as we chat about this particular item, but, it came up through a few different conversations with some park board members of the last few months, and just myself kind of stepping back and looking at some of the topics and how we've been approaching that. And so basically the thought when Curt and I sat down was, how do we use our park board to the best advantage to, vet ideas, brainstorm ideas before we get to the point of just bringing them to the meeting and looking for an action step. So the concept that we put together here was the idea of doing an alternating schedule. So 1 month we would have a park board televised meeting where we would take action on items, and the next month would be a committee of the whole format workshop where we would then go through more of the background on different things, get some direction so that staff can do more research before it comes back to you, and get feedback and input, and make it more an interactive, and hands-on opportunity for the board. I would like to, point out our thought with this too is that both meetings, regardless, would be considered public meetings. They would be posted with an agenda, and we would follow all requirements that we have for Open Meetings Act. So the public would be welcome to attend either the televised meetings or the committee of the whole meetings. But we have seen, that the importance of making sure that the community does know that they're always open. Second thing would be we would be required, because they are open meetings, to conduct and maintain minutes like we always have done, and make those posted on our website as we do are available if anybody should ask for the minutes from the items that we talk about. The third aspect of it was we would really kind of approach the committee of the whole as discussion-only meetings, with not an intention on a regular basis to take any action at those meetings. However, I think on occasion we might have, because of timing, a bid we want to approve, and with that situation, we would be required on that committee of the whole meeting to actually make note of that this is a bid, and there would be this one action item on the committee of the whole. But I think we would try to, as frequently as possible, not do that unless we had something unique that would require it. Of course, it will require my staff to make sure they're on top of our timing for all of our bids that are coming forward. Then the third thing was, we would want to encourage the park board to value both sets of meetings. The televised meeting is equally as important as coming to our committee of the whole meetings, and continue to stay engaged in the process when we have those. And that the televised meetings would be held here at City Council, obviously, where we have that set up. We would do the committee of the whole at the Municipal Services Facility, which allows us to still have supportive audio-visual equipment, but also the table where we can kind of pull chairs around it and actually have that interactive opportunity, lay out maps and talk about things that are hard to always put it up on the screen, but allow you to kind of get up close to look at things. And some examples I would, think about was when we recently had the revetment wall study with Baird and Associates, where, it was a lot of detail and you just can't project it on the screen, but you may want to really kind of look at the photos and let's talk about the pictures or the things that, are driving some of our thoughts and some of our brainstorming on how we want to approach those. Also, annually, we've had the capital improvement project meeting in this fashion, and I think it's been a really interactive and quality environment in which to help us really talk through all the different aspects and issues with it. So that was an example. And then the last thing was I didn't want the board to think that our thought here was not to negate the opportunity to still have some subcommittee meetings of the board on specific topics. We do have some different subcommittees, though they haven't been extremely active, but we could use those going forward. Or it wouldn't mean that we wouldn't have meetings where we'd have them joint with another board of the city. So like we had one yesterday morning with the Property and Public Lands Committee, those meetings would still also occur and would obviously be posted as a public meeting, as we did yesterday's meeting as an example. So, so we wanted to bring this forward as a concept for the board. We weren't asking the board tonight to have to make a decision necessarily, but see what you thought of the idea, if you like, you know, the concept we're going. I did put together a draft schedule, which is up here for you. It was in your packet, and the thought was that we would meet in July as another televised meeting, and if the board had an interest in moving this forward, that's when you would vote to approve the new schedule. And then we would start with the committee of the whole structure beginning in the August meeting. And then it would alternate going forward from there. So I just wanted to bring that forward, and Curt and I, you know, like I said, we chatted about it and thought it might be a good way to allow us to really, you know, pull the board in on these topics a little more and give us more direction and opportunity to get your participation.
Yeah, I find those non-televised working sessions to lead to a very rich discussion. I think everybody gets a chance to really voice their opinions, and we get into some real meaty discussions. So I'm a big fan of doing it this way. So I don't know how the rest of you feel.
I like the idea of taking it on the road. I'm thinking August, maybe down at the beach.
There you go.
February, on the ice. No, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if you think it would be valuable to you and your staff to do it in that fashion. I mean, I think that's my main question is, if you're recommending it, if you think it would be helpful, then that's important. And as long as city council doesn't have a problem with it,
I did mention it to the city manager, and of course, city council also has committee of the whole meetings for those very similar reasons. The other thing I thought too, just as a thought, is that we also have times residents who want to participate, engage in things that they're not very comfortable coming to a podium in a very formal setting, but being able to come to a meeting and have, you know, a conversation with us about it, whether, you know, and also other organizations, whether it's Johnson Tell with Lake Forest Open Lands when we talk about regreening. You know, it's just nice to be able to, again, put everybody at a table in a very interactive environment as we're just crafting where we might want to go, instead of, you know, this is the final plan of it. So I think it might encourage others to actually come to some of those meetings, and we can invite them to come to the meetings. I think they'll be more comfortable in those settings when we do have that kind of opportunity as well. So, and then we would be.
Drawback that I see is some people might look at it, wait a minute, it's not a public meeting anymore, but so we need to
It is.
do whatever we can.
But it is a public meeting.
I
Yeah.
know, to make them aware that, no, this is a public meeting.
Right.
And everyone is free to attend. In fact, you're welcome to attend.
Mhm.
I just think some people
Sure.
might perceive it as being closed government or not as transparent. And I can only imagine what the TV viewers are going to do if you think you're getting Emerald Ash Borer calls when they learn that we're not going to be on TV every month.
You know, that is the downside. No, that's why I wanted to make sure we brought it to you, because we're sensitive to that, and we want to be open and everybody invited to come. As you know, we don't have a large audience at our meetings on a regular basis unless there is a really significant topic, but we did want to allow and encourage, you know, the park board to be able to have more time with some of the topics that we talk about, and really have a chance to, before the meetings, even ask, I'd like to talk about this, you know, and have us put something on the agenda, and we can bring it forward. And maybe it's not something that ever needs action, but we can at least, you know, fill you in on things that are happening in our areas, and find out whether or not we do want to take it to the next level and do something additional that we bring through to you. So I think it would just help us as a staff, you know, be more involved with you and hearing what you're hearing in the community, and how we can bring that back through a formal process. So,
Anybody think it's a bad idea?
I like it.
Okay. So you will put it on the agenda for the July meeting for us to formally approve the change?
okay, that'd be great. And I know Charlie Kohlmeyer, who couldn't be here tonight, he also did call me and said he liked the concept as well. So
Great.
that was good. Okay, thank
Good.
you.
Thanks, Mary. Next up is Rob Carmichael to tell us about what's going on with summer camps. Hi, Rob.
Good evening. Well, it's great to be here again, and I'll be talking tonight about our summer camps. We have several managers that oversee summer camps. I'm just one of several people at the Recreation Department, and it's just one of our if there's one signature program, I think that sort of exemplifies what we're all about. It's camps. Yeah, I grew up in Lake Forest playing in the parks. Skoo and I played many times in the parks, just hanging out and enjoying all the things that we have to offer. And growing up here, being a CIT and a camp counselor and a camp director and supervisor, and now overseeing is just a really neat thing. And this year, our theme is what inspires you to play. And all of our staff shirts have it on the back. And I think from what I've talked to the staff, they all love it. They're kind of buying into the whole idea of getting kids out and inspiring them to really enjoy the parks and all the things we have to offer. This summer, we've got over 17 different camps, and there's a little bit of everything for everyone. Whether you're more sports-oriented or cultural arts or nature, whatever it might be, there's really something for everyone. And one of the things that's really kind of taken off is offering some of the 2-week options with our 6-week camps that we've had. We're starting to see an increase. There's more flexibility, more options, and I think that's going to help us move forward in trying to make sure we can stay on top of the competition that's out there. Of course, we also offer this wonderful, safe environment. We take great pride in the safety of all of our camps, and it's a great value. I think it's still one of the best values when you compare us to a lot of the private camps for what we do. It's the best deal in town. And of course, it's friendly. And we got great staff. We get the best of the best with the high school and college kids that come and apply every summer. As far as benefits, there's many. I mean, any of us who've been in camps know what all the great things they do for us. A lot of these kids who maybe come into the camps kind of shy and retiring, all of a sudden start making new friends. It's not just being with your own buddies, but meeting new people. All the memories that they have. I mean, I can't tell you. I oversee McCormick Day Camp, and we have multiple generations of families who all say, "Oh yeah, when I was a kid, we went, we did this certain hike or did this certain activity," and it's just neat to see the traditions that are taking place. And really, it's just getting the kids outside. A lot of these kids are so disconnected with the outdoors. They're all tied to their little gadgets and everything else. I'm not a gadget person, so I don't know what they're called, but little gadgets, and learning new skills. We got with all these great camps we have, these kids are learning new skills or getting interested in skills that they didn't know about before. So there's something for everyone when it comes to summer camps. I'm just going to kind of briefly go over some of the different ones we have. We have early childhood camps, like Active Athletes, Awesome August, Because Why, Hooray for Summer. Most of these camps are generally in the morning from about 9 o'clock till noon. We have, I know McCormick Day Camp, we have a preschool option where the kids can go all day long. So for those parents who really need to have their kids busy all day long, there's that option as well. Wildlife and nature camps, of course, this is under my area. We have McCormick Day Camp, Adventure Camp, Wildlife Science Camp, the Wildlife Camp, and also our annual trek to Beaver Island, Michigan, where I take middle school kids to the Central Michigan University Biological Station. But once again, this is another opportunity to get kids out in nature and really teach them how to enjoy the outdoors and do it safely. And it's just some of the neatest experience. That's why I do what I do. But we got some really wonderful opportunities there. Also, a lot of variety camps. A lot of different types of dance-related camps we have, which anyone who's been at the rec center knows what a phenomenal dance program we have, and it's a growing program. We have our Twigs camp, which is another really popular camp that's out at the Grove Cultural Campus, and so we've got a lot of wonderful opportunities for kids of all ages to get involved with a different variety of camps. Of course, our sports camps is another one. This summer, we actually combined sports camp with Superstars Camp. Some of our registration was down a little bit in sports camp, and it might just be one of those camps that have been around for a long time when I was a kid, but it may have just kind of run its course, and we've sort of seen registration go down a little bit, so we decided let's combine the two, and now parents actually have a lot more flexibility. Some kids go half day, some kids go full day. They still get the same sports components, but they also get some of the well-rounded other camp opportunities too in these programs. Of course, our sailing program is well known to be one of the finest in the United States, and the different camps we have for kids that may just want to learn how to do it. That's where we get our basic support moving forward, and a lot of these kids move on and do it more competitively as they move forward. So the sailing camps have been really well received. All of our camps they started this week for the most part, so things are rocking and rolling. And our counselor and training program, Joe Mobile, has really kind of revamped this whole program. It's what's really neat about the CIT program now is that it really truly is a job training program. I don't know what our percentage is, but I'd say a good percentage of our current counselors in our camps are coming right from the CIT ranks, which is really a neat system now because these kids are learning job skills, they're learning leadership skills, and now they actually have good opportunities to move into a paid position if there are openings. And that's kind of what this program is all about. And we've got, I think, 60 CITs this summer, so it's really a neat program. They serve a really valuable role. They're essentially, they do a lot of things that paid staff will do, but they're more in an assistant capacity. So they're learning all the same things that they'll learn as they move into a paid position. And of course, our counselors, they're our bread and butter. They're what makes our camps so successful. These highly energetic high school and college age kids who really love to be around kids. And these are kids that have great communication skills. They're friendly. They really connect well with the kids. And it's just neat to see a lot of these CITs who moved into paid positions and watching them sort of develop throughout the years. I can think of one of our CITs who moved into a paid position a few years ago, and he was really shy and retiring, and now he's our leader of our camp. I mean, he's the guy, our go-to guy every time, and you can see how his confidence has really soared over the next few years, and now he's getting ready to go off to college next year. So, the counselors also benefit a lot too by being a part of our programs. As far as our participation, it's one of those things where you sort of get ebb and flows from year to year. Sometimes you get a spike like we did in 2013 where we had pretty good numbers. 2014 it's down a little bit, but we are taking ongoing registration right now. There's a lot of reasons why participation might go down a little bit from year to year. I can tell you from looking at all the other entities that are out there, the private camp sector, it's very intense. There's tons of camps out there right now. So that's kind of forcing us to relook at how we do things and making sure that we are staying ahead of the competition. And we've got some ideas. One of the things we're going to do going into after this season is form some focus groups, get parents involved in giving us more feedback on things that are going well. What things can we do differently? Are there certain areas that we're not meeting, and how can we meet those needs going into next year? So those are some of the things we're looking at doing. We're also looking at doing a camp preview night over the winter time, maybe having it at the rec center gym where we could host all of our different camps and get the parents in and perhaps have some early registration incentives. I hope I'm not getting too far ahead of myself, but I think it's a good idea. When you look at our financial overview, one of the numbers that might look a little skewed is when you look at our FY12 to FY13. In FY12, our participation units was 627, and in FY13, it was 771, yet it shows that we made less money. Most of that's due to the fact that we started offering these 2-week options, and they went over so well that a lot of parents opted for, let's say, signing up for a kid for 2 weeks or 4 weeks versus our normal sessions, which are 6 weeks long. So one of the things we might look at going into the off season and going into next year is maybe offering more of a premium price on these 2-week options so we can still make sure that we're meeting our budget, but still getting the participation numbers, because our units of participation this summer are really strong, so we want to make sure that the revenue goes along with it. So I think that is it. What inspires you to play?
So the sports camp enrollment was the one that was really down.
Correct.
What's going on there?
It could just be simple, demographics, and also with sports camps especially, those are probably, when you look at the competition out there, I think that's where the most competition is with the sports-related camps. There's so many different camps out there right now in the private sector. So, it could be a combination of the private sector competition and also just the fact that there's fewer younger kids coming through. That's a camp that's been around for a long time too. I mean, we see programs not just outside of summer camps, programs that have just kind of run its course, and I think this might rejuvenize the sports camp, moving it kind of a combined sports camp and superstars camp. But that's just my gut feeling.
What are those camps doing that we're not doing?
I don't know. I know that there's perhaps some of the other camps have facilities that we can't maybe compete with, whether it's Lake Forest Academy and things like that. But I honestly think that we just have to keep focusing on the fact that we do offer really high quality camps, and I think that's going to be the message we have to get out to the residents, that we've got these great experiences, these safe camps, these really well-run camps, and really focus on the things we do well. And I think if we do that, we can kind of get ahead of the competition a little bit.
Rob, two-part question for you. in regards to sports camp, how much of the drop do you think might be related to the fact that the kids can't use a swimming pool? And the second part of that is, have we considered options of maybe doing it more at the beach or, I don't know, water slide?
Those are good questions. That's, sports camp is not one of my programs, so I don't want to speak on behalf of another manager, but I know, having talked to the managers of that program, they didn't feel that moving out of the high school was a big cause for the numbers to decline. Having talked to parents, they seem to like the central location of where it is right now. But certainly there are probably some things we can look at to add to that, to, whether it's the beach or more, aquatic experiences and things like that. Those will be some of the things we can look at when we do our roundtable discussions with parents after the season's over, because that'd be good information to know.
Yeah, I do think it has an impact just because everybody's remembering the heat of last year and the drought, and water is just, for sports camp kids, is, an important component, and that is one that, I think we'll have to really take a look at. So,
you mentioned wanting to do focus groups, and you talked about timing maybe later on. Parents just made decisions, within the last, call it, month. If you wait too long, they won't remember as richly why they made those calls. Some of them may. It's not that they won't, but I would just encourage us to really try to get to the bottom of that, particularly the sports camp number, because I think we all sort of, and you preempted us so you saw it too. But it's such a tremendous drop that it really, it begs for a real explanation. And I it could be that some of the suggestions you made are the right ones. It's just, I think we ought to really get clear about, specifically what happened.
I agree.
Because that's a big drop. Yeah.
And we'll definitely be looking at, not only the sports camp, we'll be looking at several of the camps and trying to figure out why some of the drastic drops in registration. But once again, I think it's also going to allow us opportunities to expand other camps and make other camps even better than what they are now.
Absolutely. There's no question. There's no sort of bias for the sports camp as much as it's just when you have that much year-to-year change, you wonder a little bit about what's going on.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing too is we do want to do this. I think that's a good suggestion, Steve, because we'll be bringing the next year's camp fees and the budget through early in the fall. And so we need to have a good sense of, what we want to change up or what we want to do. So I think why camps are fresh as soon as we get them done this year, to bring the parents in and have them, help give us feedback so we can set the program for next year and its budget. So I think it's a really good suggestion.
I think it's going to be really important to get a hold of parents that were in the program last year and made the decision not to be.
Yeah.
Is a sports camp not utilizing a pool? Is that the...
Well, they're not at the high school right now, so they've moved from the high school back over to Deer Path, and before we combined it with Superstars, which is over there right now. And I think one thing, and I know Jeff and I had talked about, one thing that could be a good selling point going forward is, one of the questions I get with my camps is, do your camps offer swimming instruction, not just opportunities to swim, but did they actually do swim lessons for the younger kids, which we don't right now. But that might be something that could be a really good selling point going into next year, to let parents know that, we're going to actually offer opportunities for swim lessons as an example of how we might be able to bring back some of those numbers.
I just remember sports camp was always, it was a great program, but it had pool access, and that was huge.
Yeah. And that'll, once again, I think going back to what Steve was saying, we get that information early. If that's the reason why parents are not signing up, and that's something we need to know.
And it seems
quickly.
like Lake Bluff sports camp is accelerating because they're at a pool, and Lake Forest Club, and
that's a good point.
Maybe just a suggestion or something to think about. I know in the past, staff has utilized the use of surveys in getting information from people, and I'm sure with the databases that we have of emails and things and those that register online, is there a way to send a survey to people 2 and 3 years? I can speak from personal experience. 2 years ago when the high school was closed, 2 of my boys in sports camp didn't go for the last week and a half of camp because there was no water access, and it was 90-some degrees, and have chosen not to do it because of no pool. Well, so I don't think I'm speaking for myself. There's plenty of people that have called me and said, what's going on and why was it canceled and why are our kids doing the Superstars camp. So I think the water option is a big
Yeah.
deal. And I think you might be surprised at the kind of findings you get if we did something a little more broad in terms of a survey.
We can easily do that with our system, our registration system, where we can look at kids who were in sports camp in previous years and why they didn't come back, and we can easily put together a Survey Monkey and or something like that, where we can get some good data to figure out if that is the sort of the root cause, and figure out a way to revamp that.
Other comments? Thanks, Rob. Keep
All
up
right,
the good work.
thank you.
And thanks for the hats.
Hey, enjoy them.
Next item is Director's Report from Mary.
Yes, just a few things this evening. I wanted to first bring to your attention a program that we kicked off this past Saturday. It was our Judd Goldman Adaptive Sailing Program. You might recall we went into a partnership with that foundation, which is in the city, and they donated a boat for us to bring up here and keep in Lake Forest that is modified to allow us to take individuals with physical challenges out and teach them sailing. And so we're responsible for the staff and the running of the program and maintenance on the boat, but they donated the actual boat. So this past Saturday we did a very small open house down there with the Judd Goldman Adaptive Sailing Program, and Jeff and Hunter and Brian did a fantastic job with helping coordinate all of that work and getting the boat up here. And then the Parks Department modified our ramp to be it's a little hard because the water levels go up and down. Trying to minimize the ramp incline that we have there. It dropped a foot overnight as an example. But anyway, they did modify our ramp to be more accessible as well. And so I just wanted to show you a picture here because it was really, for me, such a magical moment. We did have individuals who went out on the boat, and I put another picture up there on your position for you too, who went out on the boat. And the girl, Kim, who's in the picture with you, is a quadriplegic. She rarely leaves her chair to do things, and she came to try out sailing, so it's the first time she's ever left her chair and gone out on water and sailed with us, and she didn't stop smiling. I mean, she smiled the entire time we were out there, and we were coming back in. You could see that she was just very excited about this concept. And the other gentleman has some mobility challenges and was able to join us as well. So we're really, really excited about this new opportunity at our lakefront. We already have a few groups that we're working through the Judd Goldman Foundation that either because of the locale where some people live or the schedule didn't meet what they had in the city, that will be using the program immediately with us. We have some individuals in that same situation that came up and checked out the program, and so we did christen the boat. We did take it out on a sail. We did have some individuals that enjoyed that very much, and I just want you to be aware of that program, and I think it has tremendous potential for us to enrich our program offerings. And I put on my Facebook page this past weekend for friends, I said, it reminded me of why Parks and Recreation is so important. And I do believe that, and I think it was a great Saturday event. So come down, check out the boat. You'll see it has the Judd Goldman Adaptive Sailing Program on the side. The name of the boat is Barb, and that is because the Judd Goldman Foundation names their boats after people who've had significant impacts in their foundation, and so there was a lady named Barb, so we have the boat named Barb. But anyway, it was a very, very wonderful program.
How long will we have the boat, Mary?
What's that?
How long will we have the boat?
It's ours. It's donated to us now.
Great.
For running our program, yeah.
Awesome.
So we just have to keep up the maintenance now. So, and this is a very high-end crafted boat, a very famous boat maker who did it. And so to have it donated for the purpose of this program is just phenomenal. It was a resource we, would have been strapped to do. And I told the story when we did the christening. I said, Hunter brought the program and Jeff brought the program to me, and we want to do this program. And immediately went through my mind. I was like, oh no, we need a boat. It's capital. We don't have a lot of money for capital. And then they said, no, Mary, it's all good. It's all good. We have a boat. And so we're like, whew, this is great. And it has been. So it's going to be a wonderful relationship, a very, very positive relationship. We're the only adaptive sailing program outside of the city of Chicago. So I think, we can draw from and allow individuals, especially up here on the shore area or, west of us, opportunities that haven't existed before. So that was the first item. But back to my little items that were listed on the agenda that you got, I did want to mention the Friends Foundation had their golf fundraiser, the Fred Jackson Classic, on June 7th. We had the strongest turnout we've had in many years with participation with golfers as well as with hole sponsors. We had great weather, and I think everybody had a terrific time, a lot of fun that day. They fundraised in excess of $20,000 net profit, so we're still finalizing a few of the bills, but again, after the last few years with the economic downturn, and we had seen a decline in golfers, to rebound and then have the strongest year is a real credit to the foundation and all their hard work that they did with going out and really connecting and getting the whole sponsors and encouraging people to come golf. So we hope we can continue that momentum. So that was pretty exciting. The other thing is the Festival and Fireworks is coming up. It'll be on July 4th, as we all know, at Deer Path Park. It's a Thursday this year. We conducted our logistics meeting today internally with all the city departments, fire, police, streets, park and rec. The Rick Amos was there with the foundation, walked through a lot of those kind of components. We meet next week with Aunt Wincia to make sure the details are set with them and their use of their property. But we're really excited about the festival. It's Dennis DeYoung is our main act this year, and we have a great fireworks show planned. The two things that are different to mention is that you can buy your tickets online this year and print them out at your own home, and you bring them, and we will be scanning them with smartphones at the entrance. So that way we can not have to worry about the delay in mailing tickets or people getting lost tickets or the crush that we had with people at the rec center at the last minute. So we do encourage everybody to go online and buy that. And then the day of parking, the daily parking, I should say, will be day of sales only. Again, so we don't have that delay in getting your passes to you, or people saying, I have it, it's at will call, but now they're in their car, but they aren't at will call. So again, we're just you come, we'll take your money to park that day, and you pull in and park versus the advanced sales. So I think it'll streamline it a lot for our end, as well as ease the frustration or anxiety that residents had about getting those parking passes. So I know, Steve, you're at the meetings. Anything I'm missing that I could share as far as, yeah.
The only thing I think you did a nice job summarizing, by the way. We might give the website out so that people watching at home can know where to do that. I think the website is friends
Thank you.
lfpr.org. Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
And I think it's from what I can tell, it's going to be a really fun event, as it always is. And if we put Fred Jackson once again in charge of the weather, we should be able to check that box as well. So.
Yeah, awesome. Next item was some golf course promotions. We're really pleased with some of the things we've been doing with promoting the course. We have had some highlights I wanted to mention. We are now offering a Sunday afternoon family golf, and it's every Sunday through September 1st, starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's $50 for a family up to 5 players. One player has to be at least 21, and they then can come and play golf as a family for $50. And we've had now a few Sundays. They've been extremely popular. It's been really wonderful to see families out there learning the game of golf and playing golf together and enjoying that. So that's been kind of a neat new offer that we've been doing. The other thing that the Golf Advisory Committee recommended that we look into, and we've been working with Kemper on, that we're going to offer in July, which will be through Travel Zoo, is a Travel Zoo kind of bundled coupon, think of Groupon kind of situation, but Travel Zoo is what Kemper recommends us using because they've seen through their own other courses that there's more repeat customers from Travel Zoo and kind of a higher end market that looks of those kinds of packages. So we'll bundle a special package, offer a limited quantity of them to help drive our lower selling or non-prime time, tee times to bring people out to the course and hope we'll get repeat business from that. So again, we're trying a lot of different things out there, to continue to market the golf course and grow the use of our particular course. So we've been working on that. The Forest Park project update, as I mentioned each month, just trying to keep you in the loop a little bit on that. They are planning a Forest Park Family Fun Fest. It's going to be on Sunday, October 25th, so it's right after everybody's back in town and school starts up that week. And it's going to be a fundraiser from 11 to 1 at the park, and they're going to have all kinds of family activities, from a touch a truck to picnics, live entertainment, family activities and games. So we're still in the planning process of all the detail through that 2-hour window, and I'll be getting more information out after the groups finish some more of the detail work. We have a meeting tomorrow night on that. So we're very excited about it, and the Forest Park Project Corporation's fundraising board is excited about it, because their intent or hope is to continue to expand the excitement about the renovation down there and to fundraise for that particular park. And there'll be things down there too that individuals can, that day we'll be raffling off trees in the park, and we'll have some fun family baskets and things like that. So that's in the works. And they also will be having a groundbreaking dedication or ceremony. It's going to be at the end of July, and the date is July 27th, and we don't have the time just yet, but that's another reason we're meeting this week on that. But it's really to kind of kick off, if you will, the infrastructure work, which is planned to start the day after the Family Fun Fest occurs, and that is the infrastructure work that's related to the storm sewers, the lighting, the road, and the parking lots, and that's the city's component of it. This is the capital infrastructure replacement that the city has committed to. I know City Council will be talking about that at their July 1st meeting in more depth, but that at this point is what's anticipated to occur. And then they would move forward from there. We do the infrastructure construction in the fall, and in the spring we follow up with some plantings. So a lot of good stuff in the works for Forest Park. Some upcoming other things to mention to you. While Rob is here, we want to say kudos to Rob. This past spring, he hosted over 2,500 students from the Lake County area for our one-day environmental education programs. These are for students in 4th to 8th grade, and this was an all-time high for our field trip visits program. So great job, Rob. And he received a $1,500 grant from Zion Solutions to lead a special study at the Illinois Beach State Park, and the focus is going to be on the western fox snake and looking at its population densities, and it'll include the endangered Blandings turtle, which we've the Wildlife Discovery Center has released 12 of them, which were born captive at the Wildlife Discovery Center. So again, some really kind of neat stuff happening with that. And then the last thing I just wanted to share with you was the Raging Kitchen, which is called Raging Waves at the beach, is kicking off with rave reviews. So we're really pleased with what's happening down there. Obviously, we got to tweak a few things with a new vendor, but we're trying to get a menu finalized that we can get out and posted for people, that will have all our prices and that kind of thing. But they have breakfast available on Saturday and Sundays. There are cheese boards and snack packs that are wonderful for the kids. You can order ahead picnic baskets for your family and pick them up when you get down there. There's ribs, there's chicken, there's great sandwiches, salads, quite an expanded menu from what we typically have had. I held a meeting down there, Lake County Directors Association meeting a week ago down there, and she put together all the box lunches for me, and used one of the pavilions that you can rent, and had a full setup for my meeting with the cheese boards and everything. So it's really a nice enhancement, and so we're encouraging everybody to go enjoy that. She had a Father's Day breakfast special down there over the Father's Day weekend. So again, was always our goal, and to try to update that and enhance that food option. And this year it seems to be going very well so far.
Just to pile onto that, Mary, they not only had breakfast on Father's Day, they had a barbecue in the evening, and we picked up the ribs and chicken. It was delicious. And then today, my wife and daughter and I went down for lunch, and we were one of maybe 6 people down there. And it was fantastic food. It was beautiful to sit there on the beach, and I jokingly said to my wife, feels like we're in California. as the waves are rolling in, but I completely agree. It's a really, really good experience, reasonably priced food, and if you haven't been there, check it out. It's really good.
And the other, I shouldn't forget to mention the new vendor that we have for the Deer Path Golf Course as well. They have an expanded menu and hours at Deer Path, which is being run by Kemper, so it's our partner there. And again, I was there last week with a meeting that I had with John Centel, and we came at lunchtime. Every table inside was filled, and about half outside was a little bit questionable. The weather was coming in and out, but again, gaining a lot of momentum. Our food venues, I think, have really improved greatly. So these are two great, no wait, not too long of lines in beautiful settings to come have lunch, and dinner or even breakfast at times. So just want to encourage everybody to come check it out and give us some feedback on it, because obviously they are new, so we're working out all those kinds of things. But so far it's been really good.
Off to a good start.
And that was it for me.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Any other comments by board members? Opportunities for the public to address the board.
One at a time now.
Yes, please, please come to the mic. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.